Hey there, everyone. My name's Amanda, and I'm here to talk to you about a topic that I have been kind of avoiding speaking on my page because it's kind of a difficult one for me. So, we live in this world of duality and paradox and dichotomy, right? So, two opposing things can be true at the same time. And that can be hard for our human mind to reconcile. So, the last few months of my life, I've been having a major battle here with spirit. Really a battle with myself and blaming them for it, I guess. And I've been telling myself this story that I didn't choose to be psychic. I didn't choose to come here and do this work. I'm being forced into this against my will, and it's ruining my life. This is the story I was telling myself, and I'm sharing this because I'm sure that there are others of you out there who are awakening to psychic and intuitive abilities. And what we see a lot in the spiritual community is this positive, I would call it toxic positivity, that we don't acknowledge the difficult parts of the journey, only the parts where we feel, expansive and uplifted and joyful. But the spiritual path can also be a very difficult one, and I feel really called to share with a lot of transparency my experiences, with the understanding that all of this is for my highest good and the highest good of all, even if I can't see it right now. And I don't always feel that way. Sometimes I feel angry that I'm being asked to face things that I see lots of other people not facing. Sometimes I feel, I go into that victim mode of, oh, poor me, that I've been placed with this huge burden on my shoulders. And I think all those feelings are really valid. So here's what I want to say. When you have the gift of psychic sight, and I'm now calling it a gift. A very short time ago, I was calling it a curse. You can see into a lot of positive outcomes. You can have hope for the future. You can see a lot of really magical things, but you also see the shadow side of life as well. So you have to face hard truths of things that you're being shown that are often traumatic or not, what you want to see and know. And a lot of times too, the fact that you can see down to people's depths makes them very, very uncomfortable. So on one hand, people want to be seen in this raw, vulnerable way. And on the other hand, they are not always ready to be seen in that way. And so as the person who has the sight, this can be difficult on our emotions, and it can be painful to experience kind of this push and pull with people in our lives, who, again, on one hand, really enjoy the fact that we are sensitive and that we see them in ways that other people don't. But then on the other hand, there is this tendency to then, run away or close down. And when I look back on my life, even before I identified myself as an intuitive, I have been this way, forever, it seems. And this is a theme that's come up in my life more than one time, where people feel comfortable sharing with me very deep things about their experiences, a lot of secrets or knowledge that they don't share with anybody else. And on one hand, that's a huge honor for me to be a witness to their story and to be a safe space and a soft place to land for other people. But what I've seen since I was young, so I'm talking like 11 years old and before, what I've seen is that people tell you their story, and at the time it makes them feel good to be seen and heard. But then they go into their wound and their trauma, which has taught them that people will use their vulnerability against them, taught them mistrust or fear, that a fear of abandonment can often come up. And so I guess I'm sharing this because I, as the person on the other side of that, we often hear, right, okay, you know, sometimes people aren't ready for your love. Sometimes people aren't ready to be seen in the ways they need. It's their trauma, it's their wounding, you know, hold them in compassion. But I'm not hearing a lot of people talk about tools and coping mechanisms for the person on the other side of that. And what I mean about that is it's not quite as simple as saying, well, that's their stuff, it's not mine to take on. So let them be over there, and when they're ready, if they're ever ready, then we can continue. The thing that bypasses is your feelings. So what you see as a person who's intuitive and in tune with other people's spirits is that I'm fully aware of the wounding that causes certain reactions in people. And I have a deep compassion and a sensitivity, and so that this makes my heart hurt that I'm watching somebody in their wounding patterns and feel somewhat helpless to do anything about it. And I've come back to this issue many, many times. Like, was my love enough? Did I say enough? Because a lot of times the people I'm speaking of have maybe never heard the words of kindness that they've really needed, or that they've deserved, is what I'll say as well. And so you think, wow, if I'm the only person who has met their vulnerability with kindness and gentleness, you feel a responsibility towards that. And I've also seen in the spiritual community, people will put that down. People will say, oh, that makes you codependent, or that means that you're not standing in your power. But I actually see it another way. I think allowing that sensitivity actually is a superpower and a strength. It does not mean that you are overly attached to that person in a negative way. You know, obviously you need to take care of yourself and make sure you're not being harmed in the process of attempting to help another person. But if it would be pretty unfeeling to be fully aware of somebody else's trauma and pain, and then as soon as they don't behave in the ways that you would like them to, cut them off and say that none of it mattered. I can't do that, and I don't think most of us who are sensitive can. But there were a few things that I've heard recently that really helped me come to terms with that, my role, a little bit better, and I'm gonna share them with you. Number one is this awareness has come to me. We have a very strong understanding that when somebody has a physical wound, that sometimes in order to heal that wound properly, it's going to require some pain. An example, if I break my arm and my bone is thrown all out of whack and is sticking out of my skin, a doctor, the healer who comes in to help me with that, is going to have to break my bone back into place and set it properly in order for it to heal and be functional again. We can accept in the physical healing process such things. So, okay, I'm gonna have to be in pain for a second in order for that healing journey to begin. Let me think of another example. Well, I mean, something just as simple as usually medicine doesn't taste good. So we accept I'm going to feel better if I take this medicine, even if taking that medicine might not be a good experience or might not be comfortable for me. We're pretty good at accepting that on the physical level. And I recently was speaking with a friend, and she basically said, oh, well, the problem is that you're sucking out the poison, but the person who's reacting to you negatively is mistaking you for the person who put the poison there. Right. So sometimes, especially emotional and energetic healing, is the same as physical healing in a lot of ways. A lot of times, a period of discomfort and pain precedes the healing, or the part where you feel better. So part of the healing process is actually being uncomfortable and in pain. But for some reason with emotional wounds, or with energetic wounds, there's this false narrative going around that basically like that should be an easy or gentle process. Or if you're having a hard time with it, you must be missing the point. Something like that. And that just has not been my experience. My experience has been that I have had to really up my ability to endure pain, emotional pain, in order to get to the other side of it and to learn and grow. Another example of this is, as when we're children and our bones are growing and our skin is growing and we're growing into ourselves, how we get those stretch marks or our bones ache as we're having growth spurts. And we accept, nobody's saying, well, how dare you feel that's wrong of you to be in pain. When we grow in a new tooth as children, when children are teething, we expect that is going to cause some pain as the growth occurs. So I think we just need to reframe this a bit. And I think on both sides, number one, it will stop the self-blame, because I found myself beating myself up that, oh my gosh, like the fact that I am bringing up this block to this other person and they are in pain because I'm showing them where they're stuck, or they're in pain because I'm having a difficult conversation with them that needs to be had. Then afterwards I would go inward and say, oh my gosh, Amanda, like maybe you should have just left them alone. Like maybe you're the problem, you're causing the pain. And sometimes they will say that, they will blame me and misconstrue what's happening. But what I'll say about that is you have to learn that, right? And it's not that because you're psychic, you get to meddle in everybody's stuff and you know how everybody heals best. No. It's that sometimes you do get a really strong intuitive call and there are certain things that need to be done and said, and it's going to make the other person uncomfortable, but you have to learn to have that really solid strength within yourself and know when you are following your guidance properly and trust that it's going to work out in the best way for everyone. So I just feel like that needs to be said, because I have really struggled with this. And I've had multiple experiences in my life as well where I have had later, so one time it was many years later when I did finally have that full circle moment where I felt that person thanked me for what I did before. Thanked me for the fact that I loved them anyway, even when they were pushing me away. Thanked me for, changing their life by being that person who finally stopped the wound cycle. So I'll give you a more specific example because I'm speaking somewhat cryptically. For example, in my family, I was the first one to really wake up to the fact that there were some really negative patterns going on in our family dynamic. And I got tired of, the same argument happening over and over and over again. So I decided that I couldn't change anybody else, but what I could do was change my response or shift my behavior and see how that would affect everyone else. So I started showing up differently. I started setting boundaries with my family that were never there before. I started not reacting in the ways that they were used to. And the narrative that started to come from that was, well, then it became, I must be the problem because everyone else is totally comfortable in their negative pattern and you're the one breaking it. So you must be the problem. You must be the source of the discomfort. And so there were things said like, well, we don't argue except when you're home. You're being a brat. Things like this. And I really had to trust that I'm my own inner knowing and really say, no, I'm standing firm on this. I'm not letting them move me back into the old pattern. And it took a long time and there's still work to be done, but showing up consistently in the new way started to shift our whole dynamic. And there's a lot more healthy interaction going on today than there was, for example, 5 or 6 years ago. And it all starts with that single seed, that one person willing to stand up and be brave and break those cycles. And I've recognized pretty clearly in my life that it is part of my particular soul mission to do this in my relationships. I am put in people's path to be the person that makes them question why they are keeping themselves stuck. And that is really a difficult position to be in sometimes. And I'll say, just because you are aware of what your spiritual call is or what you're being asked to do doesn't mean you always like it. For a long time I was beating myself up because I felt that I should like it. Well, if I'm on this spiritual path and I'm this magical being who can touch people with my hands and take their pain away, if I'm this magical being that can, speak with people's deceased loved ones, if I'm this magical being that can see and know things that I don't even know how I see and know it, then shouldn't I be happy about this gift, what I didn't see as a gift, what I saw more as a source of pain and a source of difficulty in my personal relationships. But I do think that it's a deeper form of love is not allowing the people that you love to stay stuck, is not accepting a smaller version of themselves than what they truly are. And part of my gifts is that I see who people truly are, not their projections, not their masks that they've had to wear for the rest of the world. And this is part of what makes people very uncomfortable about me sometimes. That I don't see, they can't hide from me. And on one hand, I think this is a deep human desire, is to be seen in our authenticity and have someone say, you are beautiful that way. Because so much of what we spend our lives doing is trying to fit into a box that somebody else decided was our box. And I'm not here to do that. And so I always joke, it's like nobody ever, I feel like everyone else came into this world with the game book, with the rules. And I didn't even know I was in a game. I don't know the rules. Nobody taught me the rules. And so I'm here to be somebody to break them and somebody to question them. And we're here to write a new rule book that allows people to really be who they are and to heal and to shift these patterns that are just on loop of people hurting each other. I think that's about everything that I wanted to say, but I hope this is helpful to somebody on the other end. And it's something that has taken months really to integrate and a lot of resistance on my side. Like, I was really angry and really depressed and really feeling like so much of my life is not in my own hands, and why can't I just, get a handle on my emotions, and why can't I just see people for what they're doing on the surface and not look deeper into it. But that's not who I am, and to be honest, for me to only look at the surface means missing out on so much of what makes life worth living, is seeing people in all their subtlety and all their colors and not just the black and white that they put out to others is really special. And so I encourage you, if this is something that you're struggling with as well, like, understand that you are the medicine. You are a healer. And what that means is sometimes it's gonna hurt before it feels better. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't heal. So I am just sending all my love your way and wishing you all the best, and have a beautiful day.